How do we as people of faith read the signs of the times? In truth, every generation strives to understand in their lives by reading the signs presented to them. The question is, what signs do we see and what do we miss? Neuroscience tells us we are hardwired to a negativity bias, that we preferentially pay more attention to negative events than positive ones. We react more strongly to negative stimuli, and we remember traumatic experiences more vividly than positive ones. There is likely an evolutionary purpose for all this. Our ancestors learned to pay attention to predators preferentially. It was a matter of life or death. But what are we to do with the onslaught of negativity that barrages us daily in these times? And what are we missing if we have our negativity blinders on? Well, as usual, the old prophets of old have some wisdom to share in a time such as this. But let's be clear, they have no interest in speaking half-truths, shellacked with optimistic platitudes which serve as little more than diversion. No, the prophets almost always herald a twofold message. First, yes, things are bad and may even get worse, largely because humans have fouled things up. But also that God is up to something in the midst of it all, and therefore there is still reason to hope. Prophets speak in twilight, what our Celtic forebears called the time between the times, when it is neither day nor night, but mysteriously both. They regarded this twilight as sacred time, precisely because in that time the veil between what is and what is yet to be is pulled back to reveal something of sacred importance. A revelation, an apocalypse. That's what the Greek word apocalypse actually means. A revealing that does not deny the terrible truth we already know, but it always sees it against the dawn of some newfound awareness. And this is the theme for our scriptures this morning as we begin the season of Advent. Advent, this sacred time of now and not yet. A time of darkness yielding into a new dawn that invites us to consider how God is breaking into our lives here and now. Advent is a season to mark time and to read the signs anew with intention. And so we get the prophets. Jeremiah speaks to our ancestors of faith who had been deported, exiled into a foreign land where they hung up their lutes and their lyres, unwilling or unable to sing songs of joy in their desolation. Jeremiah does not quibble with the laments of the people, nor does he seek to downplay their suffering. But he does say, in the midst of all of that their restoration is unfolding, even if they cannot see it yet. And for that, there is reason to hope still. And Jesus doesn't mince words in the gospel passage this morning when he goes and he cites the prophet Joel, saying, "There will be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and on the earth distress among the nations. People will faint from fear and foreboding of what is coming upon the world." Does that sound like it rings true at all? But he doesn't stop there. Jesus says, pay attention, because when these signs of the time arrive, your redemption is near. Stand up, raise your heads, get ready, because God is up to something in the midst of all of it, even if we can't see it. But for that, there is reason to hope, even here, even now. Now, if Jesus had just stopped with that first part, with the negative news, we'll call it, he might have made the front page of, the Galilean Times for a news cycle or two. But if he stopped there, I should think we would not be here today in this house of worship dedicated to sharing his good news to any with ears to listen. So stand up, get ready, for God is up to something. And we stake our lives on it, friends. Now, to be clear, this is not some sleek optimism or naive pretense or a thinly cloaked power of positive thinking. No, this is drawing the distinction between optimism and hope. What Jürgen Moltmann, a theologian who in his Theology of Hope 60 years ago this year, draws the distinction that optimism is based on cause and effect thinking. We extrapolate about the future on the basis of the experience of the past and the present. And we make assumptions that the future that we anticipate is the result of what we've already observed, cause and effect. Since that occurred, this will likely happen. Let me give you a softball example. If my 3-year-old granddaughter seems precocious in some developmental phase, and can we just admit that she is? If my 3-year-old granddaughter seems precocious at this age, I can be optimistic that this portends well for her doing great in school in future years, and even maybe unfolding to a wonderful profession in her life and so forth. You see, that's optimism. It plays an important role for us, but it is not the same as hope. Hope is never based on cause and effect thinking that conjures the possibilities that might unfold from the current situation as we see it, which often includes the negativity blinders. No, hope is not dependent on making the correct extrapolation about the future. Hope is predicated on the faithfulness of God, who has promised time and again and again and again to show up. Optimism is constrained by cause and effect potentialities. Hope is unconstrained because it originates and finds its meaning in God, for whom all things are possible. Hope can prosper even in the valley of the shadow of death. Indeed, it is often there that we see the signs of God's mercy and justice and love most clearly. Hope is the virtue we are being invited to embrace with intention in this twilight time and read the signs of God's advent into our world as light dispelling darkness. So I will ask again, how do we learn to read the signs of the times as people of faith? Well, each of us must ultimately decide what works best to hone our own vision, but I would at least offer a few suggestions here for you to consider. First, show up in community. The church exists to remind us that we live in the time between the times, between what is dying and what is being born, between the now and the not yet of twilight. Secondly, find your rhythms of prayer daily. Find your rhythms that help you orient to this God who yearns to be with you in your life here and now. This community offers several ways to do that daily connection. And even if you don't find those fit for you, perhaps even just between now and Christmas, every day, choose to read just one psalm each day and see how the words of the Psalms speak unvarnished truth into the ambiguities of your life in ways that give your voice of lament and hope both present. Thirdly, claim your place in some ministry that makes a difference in other people's lives. There are some 80 ministries in St. Mark's here, from ushering to preparing meals for those who are hungry, to caring for creation, to stitching quilts to give to folks in the hospital. There are countless more opportunities out there. The point is, whatever you do, see it as an opportunity to point not to yourself, but to the hopeful act that such service is that which helps you understand that this world and the people in it are worthy of your care and concern, precisely because they are worthy of God's care and concern. And lastly, in this season of Advent, I encourage you, I exhort you, I beg you, find some way to seriously fast from internet-based news and social media. The brain's amygdala cannot process this much negativity and misinformation with any measure of immunity against anxiety and despair. You cannot do it. I cannot do it. Use the time instead to see the signs of hope, because this is sacred time, friends. This is sacred time when the veil between what is and what is yet to be is being pulled back to reveal God's promise to you in your life. So stand up, raise your head, and read the signs in hopeful expectation that God is coming into your life in new and fresh ways in this season of Advent, right here, right now.